Hello, thank you for being here with us for the esoteric lesson of the spiritual high school, like it was given by Rudolf Steiner 1924 in German. And here now we have a translation of this lesson. And today we will have lesson number 18. And like in the lessons before, I will say to you, it would be nice that you can see this is truly something what we can call a worship to God, a Christian worship, a Michael Christian worship, a divine service to God. So if possible, to prepare yourself and your surrounding that you can work on this lesson as concentrated as possible. So in the beginning, we will start with the last part of the foundation stone. In the turn of time, occurred the world spirit light into the earthly stream of beings. Night darkness had ended it prevail. The brightest light streamed into human souls. Light that warms the poor shepherd's heart, light that enlightens the wise king's heads. Divine light, Christ Son, warm our hearts, enlighten our heads, so that good will be what we through our hearts rise, what we through our heads purposefully want to lead. Lesson 18. My dear friends, the call to self-knowledge, which the human soul can hear when it objectively pays attention to all the beings and events in nature and spiritual life, will pass before our souls again at the beginning of our considerations. O man, know yourself, so resounds the word. You hear it, soul powerful, you feel its spirit vastness. Who speaks the word fastly? Who speaks so felt heartily? Does it act through space, distant radiation? In your senses being experience, does it sound through time's wave weaves into your life's evolving stream? Is it you yourself who in space feeling, in experiencing time, creating the world, feeling foreign, sensing in space's emptiness of soul, because you have the force of thinking, losing in the time-destroying stream. On the path to the answer which the soul can find to this question, my dear sisters and brothers, we have followed the path leading to the guardian of threshold, to the abyss of being. We have progressed to where the guardian of threshold instructs us, so that what was previously dark and gloomy, also we knew that it contains the source of our being, expanded and became light. And then, in the increasing light, we heard the guardian's call. See the ether rainbow's arc, light-facedness round, let through your eyes light created force. Your eye penetrate the circle and then look from beyond observation point, color flooding the world bowl. And the voices of the angeloi, the archangeloi, the archai, are intoned with these words as they are directed to the human souls. Sense our thoughts, colors breathing life. In the light-flooded shell, we carry sensory appearance to spirit's realm of being, and turn word embodied as higher spirits surfing too. And we see how through the flooding light in the cosmic bowl, which we met in the last lesson, the beings of the third hierarchy illuminate and are illuminated. We see the multitudes of these beings, angeloi, archangeloi and archai, turn to the higher spirits which they serve, to the exousiae, dynamis, curiotetes, and we are witnesses to how the exousiae, dynamis, curiotetes tell their serving spirits to fulfill the needs of human being. The exousiae, the dynamis, curiotetes speak. You're received from that sensory appearance enlivened. We awaken it in being. We give it to the rays which the nothingness of matter in the spirit's essence, love weaving manifest. And then, impelled from within, we must turn our gaze to the highest spirits, the first hierarchy, who now turn to humanity in blessing. from them we hear. In your words of will, feel our cosmic acting. Spirit glows in matter when we create by thinking. Spirit creates in matter when we willing live. Word is I, willing spirit world. As witnesses to how the beings of the higher world speak to each other, so penetrated with what the highest beings let stream into human souls as the cosmic word, so that the human heart may resonate with it. We must feel ourselves to be within the all-moving, all-pervading cosmic light in which we ourselves live and move. And now we come to a truth which is perceived where the non-embodied beings live, where the spirits live their lives, where the spirits think their truth, where the spirits radiate their beauty, where their spiritual acts take place. And we recognize the greatness, the all-pervading, weaving truth in the spirit worlds. Spirit is, for we are, we live, we act in spirit. We perceive spiritual being, and now we realize that spirit in which we now live alone is. We know now that even here in the world of sensory illusions is only spirit. Only spirit is. This stands before our souls as unshakable, all-pervading truth. Spirit is, and we do well to place this truth before our souls in picture form, which will be now on a board, is something like red lightning thunderbolts coming from one point in the highness, several thunderbolts, and the black nothingness between the red thunderbolts. What is expressed here in the drawing is spirit. The red thunderbolts is the spirit. It is spirit alone. And in this red areas of this thunderbolt spirit lightnings, there is written is, it is. What is here is spirit. And what is outside this red is nothing. There is placed before our souls. And the spirit world tells us, here in the red thunderbolts, here is. Here in the red is. Here is. Everywhere that spirit is something. And between there and the darkness and there right is written nothing. And where there is no spirit, there is nothing. We are profoundly impressed by this truth. Everywhere where spirit is something. And where there is no spirit, is nothing. And now we wonder, how did all this seem to us there in the world of sensory illusion, which we left to enter the spiritual world where we find true being, the Spirit revealed to our souls. Over there we did not see what is shown here in red. We are too weak there to see what is drawn here in red. What remains there then? Nothing. Over there we see nothing. Call it minerals, one kind of nothing. Call it plants, a second kind of nothing. Call it animals, a third kind of nothing, and so forth. We see nothing because we are too weak to see something in the spiritual world. And we call the nothings the kingdom of nature. That is the great deception, the great illusion. Over there only variation of the nothing are visible when we look out from the body, and we feel deeply the impression as we live over there and give names to what is fundamentally nothing, that it is the great illusion. And what is nothing, and what we give names to now appears to us as the sum of names which we give to nothingness. For in their reality all beings are only present in the spiritual world that we have now entered. Names dedicated to nothing we have wasted on the non-existence, and beings, not those from the domains of the gods to which we belong and to which we should belong, can take possession of the names which we have wasted on the nothings, and they keep these names from now on. If we are not clear about the fact that here on earth we give names to nullities, we fall with our nullities into the greatest illusion. We must know that we are giving names to the nullities. It is now clear to us because over there, in the spiritual world, we live and move in the light. And the spiritual strength of our hearts has remained there. We can feel deeply, deeply, deeply. We now know that we have gone from the kingdom of illusion to the kingdom of truth. Earnestness, holy earnestness, in respect to the truth, begins to act in our souls. And now we look back at the faithful guardian of the threshold, who stands at the abyss of being. He does not speak now. He spoke from out of the darkness. He spoke when we first felt the brightness. He spoke when the darkness was brightening for us. Now, as we stand shaken by the great truth, only Spirit is. He stands there speechless, pointing above to where the beings of the higher hierarchies speak to each other, and with presence of mind we think for a moment. Below in earthly life, we perceive the impression made on us by minerals, by plants, by animals, by physical human beings. We heard what the clouds say, what the mountains say, how the fountains ripple, how the lightning flashes, how the thunder rolls, what the stars whisper about cosmic secrets. That was our experience down below. Now, beyond the abyss, beyond the abyss of existence, all that is silent. Now we are witnesses to the God's speaking to each other. The whole core of Angeloi begins to speak. We look up and see how the core turns to the spirits of the second hierarchy, which they wish to serve. We observe the laughing, serving gestures of Angeloi, Archangeloi, Archai, who turn to the exousiae dynamis curiotetes. We view the serving multitudes of the third hierarchy. We view the multitudes of the second hierarchy in world creation, in world dominion, in world illumination, and we hear what the spiritual illuminating, divine willing beings speak to each other. We hear the Angeloi intoning their words of concern for the guidance of human souls. Their words resonate. Think the human beings. This wise on the Angeloi, they are concerned as to how they should guide human souls, because humans, they are thinking. Then they turn to the dynamis for the force needed to guide human beings in their thinking. Angeloi, think the human beings. We need the light of the heights, that we may light in thinking. From the realm of radiance, dominion acting, the dynamis lovingly and benevolently reply. Receive the light of the heights, so you can lighten in thinking when human beings think. And the flooding light, the force of illumination in thought streams over from the dynamis to the Angeloi. What the Angeloi receive enlightens without our knowing human thinking. Now we realize what acts and weaves in human thinking, the illumination of the Angeloi. But the light force for this illumination they receive from the dynamis. And it will be written on the board. Angeloi, think the human beings. Their concern is expressed in their words. Think the human being. They turn to the dynamis with their concern. We need the light of heights, that we may light in thinking. The dynamis reply. Dynamis, receive the light of the heights, so you can lighten in thinking when human beings think. Our spiritual view goes farther. We see the multitude of Archangeloi turning to the second hierarchy, that turn to the exousiae and curiotetes, to two categories of spirits in the second hierarchy. The Angeloi had turned to the dynamis. Archangeloi turned to the exousiae and curiotetes. Their concern is for human beings' feeling, and they request from the exousiae and curiotetes what they need in order to guide human beings in their feeling. Archangelois, the human beings feels. It feel the human beings. We need the soul warmth that we may live in the feeling. They must breathe life into feeling and with powerful voices, because two cores are answering. Curiotetes and exousiae voices ring out in the spiritual cosmos. Receive soul warmth that you may live in the feeling when human beings feel. The second part of the mantra is written to the board. Archangeloi, it feel the human beings. We need the soul warmth that we may live in the feeling. The reply, Curiotetes and exousiae, receive soul warmth that you may live in the feeling when human beings feel. We turn to the third multitude of the third hierarchy, to the Achai. They have concern for the will of the human being, the third concern of the third hierarchy. We feel when the Angeloi turn to the dynamis, then the dynamis act way up in the heights in order to give the light they create from the heights to the Achai for their concern for human thinking. And we feel everything in the compass of cosmic warmth is created by the exousiae and curiotetes, and it is given over to the Archangeloi so that they can guide human feeling. And deep below, where the spirits and gods of the depth prevail, and where from the abysses in which much evil moves, the god forces of the deep must be drawn up high, so all the gods of the second hierarchy pull together, for in their concern for the human being's will, they Achai need the force of the deep. They speak. It want the human beings. We need the depth forces that we can act in the will, and the powerful spirits of the second hierarchy answer with a mighty cosmic voice in the combined voices of all three together, the three cores forming one core. Curiotetes, dynamis, exousiae, three cores in one. Receive the depth forces that you can act in the will when human beings will. The third part of the mantra is written on the blackboard. Achai, it want the human beings. We need the depth forces that we can act in the will. Curiotetes, dynamis and exousiae answer together. Curiotetes, dynamis and exousiae. Receive the depth forces that you can act in the will when human beings will. This is the world existing in the holy words of creation, of which we will be witnesses in spiritual worlds as we are witnesses of the events in the mineral and vegetable kingdoms here in earth. And we hear in that it becomes our experience. Think the human beings, we need the light of the heights, that we may light in thinking. Receive the light of the heights, so you can lighten in thinking when human beings think. Feel the human beings, we need the soul warmth, that we may live in the feeling. Receive the soul warmth, that you may live in the feeling when human beings feel. Want the human beings, we need the depth forces, that we can act in the will. Receive the depth forces, that you can act in the will when human beings will. And now we'll say it again in German. Es denken die Menschenwesen, wir brauchen das Licht der Höhen, dass wir im Denken leuchten können. Empfanget das Licht der Höhen, dass ihr im Denken leuchten könnt, wenn Menschenwesen denken. Es fühlen die Menschenwesen, wir brauchen die Seelenwärme, dass wir im Fühlen leben können. Empfanget die Seelenwärme, dass ihr im Fühlen leben könnt, wenn Menschenwesen fühlen. Es wollen die Menschenwesen, wir brauchen die tiefen Kraft, wenn wir im Wollen wirken können. Empfanget die tiefen Kraft, dass ihr im Wollen wirken könnt, wenn Menschen Wesen wollen. We grow into the spiritual world instead of what surrounds us here in the sensory earth, the cause of the spiritual worlds around us. And we become witnesses to what the gods say in their creative concern for the world of humans. Only when our meditation we go on to the complete elimination of what we are here on earth, and to having a feeling for the world the gods are forming with their divine speech, do we experience true reality. And only when we possess this reality do we also know what really surrounds us between birth and death. Because behind the appearances in life between birth and death is the reality of what we experience between death and rebirth. In earlier time, people living on earth had a dull, dreamlike clairvoyance. Their souls were filled with the dreamlike pictures spoken from the spiritual world. Let us imagine a person from olden times, when he was not working and was resting, although the sun was still in the sky, and was thinking back, pictures arose which he experienced in his soul, and which remind him of what he had experienced in pre-earthly existence in the spiritual world. But he didn't understand the connection between his earthly existence and that existence which shone into his clairvoyant dreams. But the initiates and their teachings were there. They explained the connection first to the students, and through the students to all the people, though they lived in the earthly world experiencing the memories of pre-earthly existence. Nowadays, in earthly life, the memory of pre-earthly existence has been extinguished. Initiates cannot explain the connection between earthly life and pre-earthly existence, because humans have forgotten what they experienced in pre-earthly existence. Such an explanation is not possible because the cosmic memory no longer exists. Nevertheless, what the gods are saying behind sensory being must be heard by means of initiation science. Human beings must experience it, and soon the time will come, it's approaching more and more, when a person who passes through the gate of death will only be able to understand the spiritual world into which he enters, if we realize that when a person enters heavenly existence through the gate of death and finds himself in the reality of the spiritual worlds, within the world of angeloi, archangeloi, archai, exousiai, dynamis, kyriotetis, thrones, cherubim, seraphim. If he experiences all this, if what he experiences after death, it is not to remain incomprehensible and dark to him, then he will have to remember what he experienced here on earth through initiation science. And what is extremely important in understanding what can be experienced in life between death and a new birth, if it has been heard, otherwise it cannot be understood, is remembrance of what is still heard on earth, and which resounds as following. It think the human beings receive the light of the heights. It feel the human beings receive soul warmth. It want the human beings receive the depth forces. These, my sisters and brothers, are the words that should be heard today in the esoteric schools. They should resound through the instruction of those who lead the esoteric schools with the force of the Michael Age. Then it can be thus. In the esoteric schools, the voice of the angeloi are first heard within the earthly sphere. It think the human beings, the dynamis reply, receive the light of heights. The voice of the angeloi is heard, it feel the human beings. The reply of the Curiositates and Exousiae, receive soul warmth. Archai's words, it want the human beings. All three members of the second hierarchy, Exousiae, Dynamis, Curiositates, answer, receive the depth forces. Those people who have heard those words in esoteric schools will go through the gate of death, where they will again hear all these words resounding together. The esoteric school here live between death and a new birth there. They will understand what is resonating there, or they will be dull and unwilling. After preparation of General Anthroposophy, in respect to what is said to the esoteric school, they do not perceive what can be heard through initiation signs from the realm of the heights. They go through the gate of death. They hear there what they should already have heard here. They don't understand it. When the gods speak to each other with powerful words, it resounds to them like incomprehensible ringing, mere sounds, cosmic noise. Paul speaks about this in the Gospel, that through the teaching of Christ, man should protect themselves from the death in the spiritual land. For death then comes in the spirit land if we go through the gate of death and don't understand what is resonating there, if we can only hear the incomprehensible sounds instead of the understandable words of the gods, because we have been overcome by the soul's death instead of the soul's life. There is an initiation science because souls are alive. There are esoteric schools, though the souls may remain alive when they go through the gate of death. This we must feel deeply. It's very important. And now let us consider the path we have taken in spirit, how we approached the guardian in order to learn how the human being crossed the abyss of existence, and let us also consider how the impressions there acted on our souls. Let us take into our souls the inner drama of self-knowledge. We have traveled the path, 3 tablets, 3 tables stood there, so to speak. We are now standing before the 3rd one, after we have taken into our soul all the profundities of divine speech. On the 1st table, long before we arrived at the abyss of existence, resonated, "O man, know yourself, so resounds the world. You hear its soul powerful, you feel its spirit vastness. Who speaks so word fastly? Who speaks so felt heartily? Does it act through space, distant radiation, in your senses being experience? Does it sound through time's wave weaves into your life's evolving stream? Is it you yourself who in space feeling, in experiencing time, creating the world, feeling void, sensing in spaces, emptiness of soul, because you have the force of thinking, losing in time destroying stream? Then we approach the guardian. The second table stands there on its stance. Recognize first the earnest guardian who stands before the gate of spirit's land, the entrance your senses forces and your mind's power refusing, because you are in thoughts shaping, from space's beinglessness, from time's deception power, the truth of own being you must first forcefully conquer. I will say it again in German. Erkenne erst den ernsten Hüter, der vor des Geisterlandes Pforten steht, den Einlass deiner Sinnen Kraft und deines Verstandes Macht verwehrend, weil du im Sinnesweben und im Gedankenbilden aus Raumes Wesenlosigkeit, aus Zeitendruggewalten des eigenen Wesens Wahrheit dir kraftvoll erst erobern musst. We have arrived on the other side, passing the earnest guardian, and have heard a conversation such as this. It think the human beings receive the light of the heights. It feel the human beings receive soul warmth. It want the human beings receive the depth forces. We look back to the world of senses and we feel about the sensory world, the words of the third table. I entered this senses world, the legacy of thinking carrying with me. A God's power had led me here. The death, it stands at the way's end. I won't feel the Christ being. It wakes in the matter's death, spirit's birth, So in the spirit I find the world and recognize myself in world's creation. I will say it again in German. Ich trat in diese Sinneswelt des Denkens Erbe mit mir führend. Eines Gottes Kraft hat mich hereingeführt. Der Tod, er steht an des Weges Ende. Ich will des Christus Wesen fühlen. Es weckt in Stoffes Sterben Geistgeburt. Im Geiste find ich so die Welt und erkenne mich im Weltenwerden. And what has been placed before our souls by the guardian of the threshold's words is Michael's message in this rightfully established Michael's school. If we receive them with the right attitude, Michael's being is present in these rooms, consecrating and strengthening what has been placed before our souls. Therefore it may be accompanied by Michael's sign. Michael's sign is and Michael's seal, which has been impressed on the Rosenkreutzian mood for centuries, and which is expressed in the dictum. Ex Deo nascimur, in Christo morimur, per Spiritum Sanctum revivissimus. The first words, I revere the Father, are spoken accompanied by that gesture. The second word, I love the Son, is accompanied by the gesture. The third word, I unite myself with the Spirit, are accompanied by the gesture. The first gesture means I revere the Father. The second gesture, I love the Son. The third gesture, I unite myself the Spirit. Thus we may understand what is spoken as having been strengthened by Michael's sign and confirmed by Michael's seal, which is impressed over the Rosenkreutzian words. So should the verses live, which have been given through Michael's sign and sealed by Michael's Rosenkreutzian school, for your souls. Ex Deo nascimur, in Christo morimur, per Spiritum Sanctum revivissimus. The Michael imagination. arisen from powers of the sun, shining world blessing, spiritual powers, for Michael's garment of rays, you are predestined by thought divine. He, the Christ Herald, revealeth in you, bearing mankind, holy world will, you, the bright ether world beings, bear the Christ word to mankind. Then Michael appears, the Christ herald, in awaiting, thirsting souls. To them shall shine your enlightening word in the spirit man word's time. You, the student of spirit knowledge, take Michael's wisdom beckoning, take the world's will, love word, in the soul's high targets, effective in. Thank you.